Hey, team players, and welcome back. It is an absolutely fabulous day. Bob and I just did our fishbowl draft, and it is exciting. But today is all about the Eliminator Challenge. The Eliminator Challenge on Underdog is one of, in my opinion, the best events because it's every week, in, out, be at your best. Today is the Super Bowl. And it also has that just a winning mentality to it. It's a totally different game. You got to break it down differently. And that's what Bob and I are going to be doing on this amazing episode of Local Football Flavor. So that's right, Bob. Let's fire it up. Let's make some awesomeness happen because the Eliminator is something that's a different animal, a different beast. And quite frankly, what is your mentality and thought process for taking on this such unique and fun challenge?
Yeah, so let me actually pull up two that I did and kind of just to kind of show everybody what my initial reaction to the contest was. And then we can get into a draft after that. So I'm going to pull up one of my two entries here. And then we can just kind of talk about the idea behind it and the just kind of the traps that I might have got myself in and whatnot. Can you see it on the screen?
I see your two eliminators. We just got to see see you show the teams.
Now, so the first one I did over here, this one right here, I am sort of satisfied in, sort of not, and I'll get into the nuts and bolts of that afterwards.
With Josh Allen, it's a good start.
I think where I'm at on this one, I had picked two, and obviously I went Bijan there, and I think that it's important in the Eliminator because we're looking at this. You know, a lot of people out there with the Eliminator will start saying, oh, every week's going to be a cash contest. You want to shoot for a high weekly floor, but you also want to make it out of the first round, right? You also want to make it out. So when I look at that mentality of trying to make it out of the first round, and when I look at the idea of safe floors, I always think running backs, right? So you can take a look here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You
can take a look here and see that, you know, 3 of my first 5 picks, you know, in a way are running backs. What's up, Recon? We're just kind of going over some of the Eliminator teams that we already drafted here. And as you go deeper down into this, the wide receiver room isn't sexy, right? It is the least sexy of the group of players. We've been good, Recon. Just very tired. Joe with 2 kids, me with 1. You know, trying to get sleep when we can. But when you look at the wide receiver room, I say to myself, well, if I'm looking for high upside and high floors, I'm going to tackle teams that people are kind of avoiding, right? Carolina, Cleveland, Green Bay, because those are kind of the teams when I look at an Eliminator where they could definitely pop off and win me a week, right?
Yeah, because Bob, you said something really important there that our audience needs to get is that the ceilings are great, but since this is a week-by-week elimination contest, as soon as there's a week the ceiling falls on you, that entry is gone for the duration.
Yeah,
the Eliminator truly is a floor contest.
So
especially once you get out of September.
So then we come over here, Joe, to my second Eliminator team. And when I look at this Eliminator team, it's not built the same way as the other team, but what I was shooting for here was going for later bye weeks, like week 13, week 11, 12, 13, 14, because once you get to week 14, if you make it in the Eliminator to week 14, you're winning 10 grand. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's worth it.
So if I can make it there and stack up a couple of these buys to get to the back end, I'm okay with that. Magic 4th was good. Just a lot of relaxing, a lot of just hanging out. My son actually.
We're gonna start this Eliminator draft at 406. So be ready to jump in 406 at the 20-second mark. 406.
Taking a look at this team, the wide receivers are a little bit more powerful. The tight ends are a little bit more powerful. So this team I feel is a little bit more balanced. So what I'm going to shoot for in the Eliminator that we're doing today is kind of just like a mixture between those two. So At 406, we're going to be hitting this button at 406.
And that's going to be the 20-second version. So feel free to jump in with us. We saw we got a bunch of you live. Love Recon and Magic sending the things. Oh, wait, guys, always comment. We respond to everyone. We are cool like that.
Magic, how was your 4th, man? Yeah, I didn't see any fireworks. We kind of just laid low because, the little one was in bed before like 9:30. So we did absolutely nothing. We kind of got a little bit of drink on, and that was it. Joe was in it, though. Joe was in it.
I went very heavy on the 5th. We stayed drinking starting at
11. All right, Joe, hit it.
Through the night, and then all right, good. So this isn't all the way full yet. And then the next day, Bob and I are doing our draft, and then I go to a graduation party thereafter. It was phenomenal, people.
So
this is the way you're supposed to do it.
This is kind of the thing I want to talk about. So Joe and
Bob, are you controlling today, or am I? I'm cool either way. I just need to know.
Yeah, I'll control it. We just did our Scott Fishbowl draft. The first 10 rounds of it, and we're still doing it. And in that instance in time, for Scott Fishbowl, you're getting 3.5 points per reception for tight end. I took Trey McBride in the first round. But I think one of the things that in a regular PPR style setting or half PPR style setting is that we need to really kind of buck up and say, these tight ends in the first, second, third round are really going to lampoon you in terms of your other positional value. Because let's look at it this way. When you come to the usage of tight ends, outside of McBride, outside of Kelsey from years past and Mark Andrews, the eliteness of that position is coming from like a weakness at other positions on certain teams, right? And when we look at how these teams are set up right now, Trey McBride, if Marvin Harrison Jr. continues to do well, Trey McBride can continue to do well. Same can be said about Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Ashton Genty, etc. But the value that you're paying for their possible upgrades in touchdowns, right? So unless you see Brock Bowers as a 10, 11 touchdown guy, even though his volume was so good this year, I don't think you can take him in the first or second round. Same with Trey McBride. If you only have one shot at it, right? If you only have one shot at it and you want those guys, you got to get those guys depending on your setting. But as we look at these tight ends going down the board, I think a value that can't be slept on this year, and it's a player you just mentioned here, Recon, is Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta now is going 5th, 6th round in best ball drafts, probably a little bit later when we look at redraft drafts. When we look at George Kittle's going 4th, 5th round, and he has just as much potential to put up high value touchdowns as the top 2 guys with a little less volume. Then we go down even further on the board, and we look at Joe's boy, David Njoku, and we look at guys like TJ Hawkinson, and we look at guys previously like Jonnu Smith. But we go even further down the board, and we look at Jake Ferguson. The touchdown numbers for these tight ends is not going to be super duper high. But in terms of volume, they're pretty much all going to float in that same kind of, they're going to get 6 to 7, maybe targets a game. Reliably, they're probably going to get 5. And then you're going to have to see what they do with that. The only reason Bowers and McBride really pop off on the board is because there's no other reliable threat per se outside of that other wide receiver. So you look at it and you say, okay, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., James Conner. That's kind of all I want to draft from that team. Kyler Murray being the quarterback. Then you look at Las Vegas and you say, okay, I only really want Genty, Myers, and Brock. And then you have Geno and Thornton. So
and pause you up here real quick.
Yeah,
We're doing an Eliminator live. You can jump in it right now. There's 4 open spots, and there's enough of you guys watching. We can fill this thing up and start it right now. So this is the Eliminator on Underdog, the 20-second pick version, because we're doing these fast.
So when you look at what happens in these, when you take a tight end early, and it gets you every time, is you start chasing other positions because you took that high watermark player, and that player is you have to have that player turn out if your first round guy goes down and you hit it on the waivers, okay, fine. But usually your first round guy needs to hit in some degree or fashion for you to be super competitive in the season. That's not always, but most times. Now, if Brock Bowers fails, or if Trey McBride fails and only puts up respectable tight end numbers, he could still turn out as the tight end 1 on the year, or the tight end 3 on the year. But the tight end 3 on the year isn't going to be as valuable as, let's say, the wide receiver 7 on the year, or the wide receiver 8 on the year.
Like wide receiver 24 will probably be tight end 3.
Brock Bowers and those elite tight ends really have to be, if you're taking them, they have to hit. There's no wiggle room. As it goes for Laporta, though, Laporta's value right now, 5th, 6th round, you won't be chasing, because you know that you can build Laporta, because Laporta is falling value right now. George Kittle is higher than Laporta right now, and Laporta showed the chops last year that he was hurt at the beginning of the season, and that's why he failed. It wasn't because he got bad. It was because he was hurt. And so you look at it and you say, well, do I want Laporta at this 5-6 turn, or do I want to wait and take a chance on maybe a Kincaid, maybe a Ferguson, maybe a tight end in that perspective? I mean, you look at the board here, Joe, just taking a look at tight ends. Mark Andrews, ADP 113 in this tournament, Eliminator tournament.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You see the variance here, Recon, of Sam Laporta being ADP 77 versus Trey McBride 29. You don't have to chase tight end.
One person left. Who's jumping in it?
Tight end. And it's important that when we
Recon, to your second point here, you do have dark magic. You have local football flavor helping you out. I love the fact that we got you to the finals last year. I think we got you finals 2 years in a row, actually. We love that. You do got dark magic, and we're going to keep backing you up all the way. Bob is basically the emperor. Don't let him try to tell you he's not.
Joe, but here's what I'm saying, though, is that when you go after the elite tight end, that prevents you from also going after the elite quarterback, because then you're really, really chasing.
And the elite quarterback is infinitely more valuable.
And you don't want – we're 3 of 4. Son of a gun. What is this world?
Oh, wait, we're next to each other.
Is this?
Time to snipe your ass.
I hate you. But living by the premium, living by that premium and saying, like, hey, we really need to think about in certain tournaments. I think in redraft, and I know many people are going to be against this, but I really do think in redraft.
Hey, Bob, since we're next to each other, you just want the draft board up instead of showing your queue. I'm cool with that too.
I'll be happy.
I got the draft board set up on mine.
So when we look at like the variance in quarterbacks in redraft leagues, and we're going to be talking more about redraft leagues late July, early August, but every time in my home league, it has almost invariably been a guy that has Josh Allen, or a guy that has Lamar, or the guy that has Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has won it for somebody's team, or Josh Allen, like 2 or 3 years in a row now. And I think that among most things that is like the most important. And for me, I can't not walk away in my redraft this year without an elite quarterback. I know that's weird for me to say it, and I'll be taking the Jordan Loves of the world later, of course, too, because we have 2 quarterbacks. But again, it's crazy. The dark magic is nice though. But when we look at the walking away with your draft without Josh Allen, what? I don't care if I spend a 3rd rounder on Josh Allen, because he's always been the quarterback, 1 or 2 for the last 4 years. I mean, that's right. Like, you look at his value right now, Joe, even in this league, he's going 26 overall. Lamar Jackson, 29 overall. There is something to say that, like, his weekly upside in an eliminator tournament, last year he did ping like at like a 9 or a 15 one time, I think. Maybe 2 times, but that's always going to be relatively high on a week-to-week basis for him. It's crazy. We are at the 3-4.
Mm-hmm.
We are at the 3-4, and it is a jumbly mess right there. You see that, Joe, on the draft board? Our 2 names just colliding into one another.
I see it. I see it.
Yeah,
your name's too long, and my name's not long enough. That's what my takeaway that is.
I mean, truthfully, probably. All right, let's make this bigger. So,
Bob, you can also just flick it over to mine if you don't, like I said, if you don't want to keep bouncing around.
no, it's okay. I really like that Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins at the turn there. I think that could be deadly elite in this type of tournament.
Now, see, I don't because
Henry Achan, I think, is wonderful.
The reason I don't is, as you said earlier, the floor
I'll
is
get that in a minute,
dictated
Recon.
by the running backs. Your Recon, here's the reason. This is really, even though it's the Eliminator, it's really truly a floor contest. Because if you go for a ceiling, you're more likely to bust. Gibbs is an incredibly high floor. That's why Bob went there.
Yeah, the other reason why Recon is in another Eliminator that I did recently, I took Bijan. So I want a little bit of diversity there, and I don't think that either of these you're gonna have. I mean, these weeks right here, these two guys, if they're healthy, they're up there. They're up there always in that 20-point range for me, 22 plus points. And if I can have a running back that's typically going to end in that range with high upside like these three have up here, I can't pass on them. I mean, you can make an argument. I mean, as we've been saying for weeks now, almost months, guys like Puka and guys like Nico are kind of undervalued, but Puka's been like climbing the board. I remember when we were getting Puka down here at like 10, and people were calling us crazy for that. But again, like, I think you need that.
I still don't get why Drake's going in the first round. So you go with Bob?
Going in the first round.
Oh, you took Lamar off me. I thought he was coming back.
You know, I can let Josh Allen, because again, I built a team with Josh Allen and Bijan. I'm willing to diversify a little bit here. You know, with Gibbs, I can see that Monty would bother people, but at the same point in time, you know, Gibbs and Lamar are two really high upside plays with a good floor. I mean, Lamar's put up like 15
starting
points
3 running backs or 2 running backs or and receivers. 3 receivers or 2 receivers.
3 wide receivers
and 1 flex.
Yeah, and 1 flex.
All right.
So I'm in a little trouble here with 2 week 8, running backs, but I think that all will be well with this. Now, Joe's combination, Josh Allen, Bucky, Bijan, that's elite. Do I like that team better? Yeah, just because I'm a Bucky guy. But I knew I wasn't going to get him on the comeback because of Joe. This is what sucks about having Joe right next to me, is he knows that how much I like Bucky. Like in our Scott Fishbowl, I took him in the 2nd round because if I'm doing just one draft and not best ball and not like anything like that, and I'm coming away with one guy, it's going to be Bucky.
And that's fair. I mean, it's a totally valid guy.
And people know how much I like Nico as well. Talking the praises of Nico. Joe came out with Nico as well. Looking at these combinations, when we look at like, okay, and this is where the fun part is in this tournament, half of you make it out of the first week. Okay. So like if we go to see like how many people make it out, 6 of us are going to make it out of the first week. So you could say, Bob, why don't you build this team for the first week? I mean, 6 of us are going to make it out. So I don't really feel the need to have to build it for week 1. Because if I make it out of week 1, these guys are going to go. We're going to have to get a little bit of value here.
And it's also random who you play every week thereafter. It's not like they do the highest score plays the lowest in the traditional re-rack.
So we still have, and you're going to notice a little bit of difference here in the structure of these teams. So you're going to see the back half, like the first part of this draft, there are a lot of 2 running back team builds already because that's where the value was at the position. Then you see at the back half, 7 through 12, a lot of already with 3 wide receivers. So all of those guys are going to be hammering running backs pretty soon. We're all probably going to be hammering wide receivers. So, a little bit of value could be coming towards us at some point in time.
Well, that's not what I wanted to happen. What
are you going to do, Joe?
All 3 of my guys I had in my queue, 1, 2, 3, because I was going to take Hurts.
Doesn't it suck? It's terrible. You bastard. You bastard. Do
You're
I
going to
take
take
another
Walker. I know you're going to. I'm not
He's
even
another
going
week
to put him like
He's another week 8 player, though.
Well, I don't have this week 8 trap that you built.
Yeah. So you see right there what I did in this tournament here, getting George Kittle in the 4th round. I think the value's there enough. This guy at 1, preventing him from getting him, I'm okay with that. My next tight end probably won't come until round 8, 9, like I was just saying. A little early on DeAndre Swift. You see the running back pool going to dry up probably pretty fast here. A lot of us it's weird. This room is really weird right now. The juxtaposition of running backs to wide receivers. You notice that, Joe? It's wild.
Hey, there's not enough running backs being taken.
I mean, I don't want three running backs there, but I can't pass up Ken Walker.
I'm going to take a 4th. I would have taken Walker. So I'm not going to take a 4th, but I am going to take your boy.
Yeah. So structurally, guys, we're in trouble. I mean, this team, here's the thing about Bijan. This is kind of like the best thing about Bijan that I think can't be understated in these tournaments like this. Like, you're going to notice I took 3 week 8 running backs, which is rough. I'm going to have to make up some back end talent, and I don't have any wide receivers right now. So this build right here is definitely a deadly build. It could get me out of week 1, but by week 8, I'm going to have a challenge because I don't have any starting running backs yet, and I need to get a core of wide receivers. But the best part about Bijan, and I think this can't be understated enough, is that he doesn't have a bye week during Murderer's Row bye weeks. His bye week is week 5. Okay? So all of that, I think that bakes in his value even more because Saquon has a bye week, I think, shared with Derrick Henry, I believe. Christian McCaffrey's week 14. Genty's week 8. Gibbs is week 8. Kyron's week 8. Chase Brown is week 10. Josh Jacobs and Bijan week 5. If you pick those 2 guys and then you can make it back after that, I think it's perfect. Now you're going to see like the running backs have dried up, but the wide receivers are going to do that as well. Jacobs and Bijan are week 5. Yeah. And like I said, if you can build that and then build in a little back end safety net, you will, I think, profit the rest of the way. You just would have to get past week 5, just like I have to get past week 8. Again, you have to get past every week, but this is the other thing that I think is like understated in this tournament. You might actually be going up against someone who also has all their running backs on by week 8,
which is possible. Yeah.
Right. So like,
I always hate when people do that.
You might not be losing anything on it. Like you could have 10,000 teams that have Bijan knocked out week 4, and you might have the only couple of Bijans left. So there is definitely something to say about that type of value in this tournament. And, it would be hard. It would be hard to continue to say that that's, not a good way to go. So I took Rome there, trying to avoid week 8, but if my boy makes it, I'm all right. Am I maxing this one? No, Ryan. I'm not maxing this tournament. I'm going to mix in a bunch of these, but I'm definitely not maxing it because maxing this, the payout for maxing it, I think you could get through with maybe if you did like 25%, you'll probably get through like maybe 3 teams, maybe 4 teams. I don't feel the need to max this. How do you feel about that, Joe?
I am maxing on DraftKings. I mean, I'm personally biased towards DraftKings, but that being said, I like this format a lot.
I do too.
Here's the thing. Max what you like drafting. I mean, there's another element of that. If you like doing it, just do it.
Yeah. I'm just disappointed. I didn't get a chance to max out the puppy or the super flex because I was just doing, 20-second drafts and only doing it when when my little one was sleeping. So like I didn't get a chance to do that, and then it closed up. Like I hope Underdog puts
back.
I hope so.
That's sold out too fast for them not to bring it back.
Ryan, who's your most taken player so far? And from what position have you drafted the most? So if you look at your exposure and all that stuff,
mine is Rockey by far.
No, I'm saying in this tournament, in the Eliminator, who is your most drafted player? Either at value or whatnot, and what position have you landed in the most? Because like I said, in those super flex puppy drafts, I was landing at the back half all the time, and I had to manufacture some value there. In these Eliminators, I've landed like in the top 4 recently, so like I have a little bit more exposure to these high end quarterbacks. Again, this is only the 3rd one right now, but as you study it, as you look at it, it's a pretty fun way of thinking about things. Hunter Henry, yeah, boy, I like it. Look at this. This guy went 4.
Can't say I do like that.
4 lower end kind of starter caliber players. But I like Aaron Jones and Tony Pollard on a weekly basis. I think they're enough to get you out from week to week without like super high end upside. Because all 4 of those guys are committee guys right now. However those committees swing, I think is great. I'd rather have those in Best Ball Mania than in the Eliminator, but I will be taking a bunch of Aaron Jones, I think. This guy still doesn't have a running back yet. Or no, he has 2. So he has 2, and he's spreading the board like on BBM. So that's all right. Jane Reed. Yeah, I think Jamar has a reasonable case to come back as wide receiver 1 again. If I were to say anybody to come out as wide receiver 1 that's not Jamar, I'm staking it on Puka and Nico. Those are my top 2 candidates, followed by CD and probably Rice. I think those guys have the best chance to get wide receiver 1 numbers. Drake London at 9 here is really interesting to me. I wouldn't go so far as to take him at that big, but I understand why people would want to do that. Puka and Stafford at 17% plus Hurts. Love that. 20% likely. Love Isaiah Likely. If there's anything, he just passes it more and more to him. So we're going to go.
I believe the Eliminator, you should have 3 quarterbacks no matter what. Bob and I are different. That Tracy pickup's great for you, Bob.
2 is fine for me. BTJ, where did BTJ get drafted? BTJ got drafted 17. So I've seen BTJ in most tournaments as high as 8 and as low as 19. Very much, a different kind of, there's a big variance in his value. Like Puka's not going to slide so much, but BTJ has been the one that's been really going back and forth. All right, here. Are we gonna? We might have to do that. All right. I think Ramondre is.
You took them both.
I think Ramondre is fine for a tournament like this.
There's a word for that.
I really need to build up my wide receiver core in this. As again, I only have 2. I only have 2 wide receivers, but I think that in a tournament like this, that I should be able to get out of the first round. And I'm playing around with the way I think about wide receivers. Ryan, how do you feel about wide receivers in a tournament like this? Are you thinking of it, similar to how you feel about Best Ball Mania in terms of getting, you got to have like 7, 3 high-end guys? Because I do think Rome and Jacoby have a lot of upside this year. We'll see. Tyrone Tracy for us is one of the guys that, we're a little sleepy on him.
I'm very big on Tyrone Tracy. I love the value you're getting for him. He's going to get a ton of catches. Bad offense.
In terms of the overall like structure of teams, like a lot of people right now are really sleepy on Tracy because of Scadaboo's hype. But Scadaboo and Tracy are not the same guys. And whatever quarterback that they put in there is going to utilize Tracy to a degree. Will he have a super high amount of upside on a week-to-week basis? I'm not so sure, but I do think that his value in the 8th, 9th round here is enough for me to want to continue to click him over guys like ETN, Spears, or Najee. Now, that's not to say that I'm not drafting ETN or Spears, because I do still like Spears, even though he doesn't have any ligaments left in his legs. But, they don't have like, when we look at the totality of the Giants, Theo Johnson at tight end, you got Wandale, you got Slayton, you got Neighbors. Overall, this is a pretty underwhelming offensive team. People are saying that the Carolina Panthers are bad. Like, I mean, outside of neighbors, this is very, very much a team that's like not so fun to be around. So it's like, well, what do we do? Like, what are we doing here? It's just a curiosity for me more than anything else. So, yeah. So in this tournament, overall Magic, I would say like Terry McLaurin has second, third round value.
Run.
So second, third round value for a guy like McLaurin. Do I think it's a little much? I think second round is too much, but I think third round is perfectly fine for a guy like Terry McLaurin. In this tournament, he went.
Bob, it just dawned us. We did the siren call for everyone that joined this draft. We didn't see if any of our listeners were any of the other players we're going against, as the Joku and Andrews go back to back there.
So, when we look at Terry McLaurin, he's the guy that is like, for me, odd guy out. I'm not spiking anything with Terry. He's not on my list of guys that I absolutely want to draft this year. As I said last week, like, he's a perfectly fine player and a very, very good player at that. But when you look at Terry, the numbers have not changed much other than those touchdowns. And that's what we were hoping for this past year with Jaden Daniels. So the fact is, they added Debo. They added some, they didn't add much anywhere else, though. So if Jaden Daniels is going to make that next step and get to like the 30 touchdown mark as a passer, will that be Debo's? Will that be Terry McLaurin's? Can Terry McLaurin get to 14 total touchdowns? Will those numbers for the receptions go up to 1,400? Will they go up to 1,200? I don't think so. And so I think where his value is right now, Magic in the second round, I think it's too rich. I think it's way too rich. Guys that I would rather have in the second round, again, Rashee Rice's price, I paid third round price for him in Scott Fishbowl. I think second round is kind of like a good space for him, even though other tournaments earlier in the year were getting him like fourth round value. So his value is kind of like weird right now. But all these guys like Amon-Ra, because the running back went really early here, Amon-Ra dipped down in the second round. Like, that's value. Like, Amon-Ra in the second round, I think, is like killer, especially for a tournament like this. Lad I would rather have Amon-Ra over Lad, but I get the reasoning why. We took Lad a little bit earlier as well. I think Tyreek in the third round is interesting value. I love Garrett Wilson in the third round. I've seen Joe get taken in the second round too. I probably wouldn't do that too often. This draft is a little weird. A lot of the wide receivers push down to the back end. So, I mean, Magic, I see a lot of interesting things there from the wide receiver market. And I'll rank them in a minute of guys that I like. I think Rice is that guy. He proved he was that guy. And I think he'll continue to prove it in this offense. Do I like Xavier Worthy? Absolutely. Can't get enough Xavier Worthy.
No, Rice is the reason. If you believe Mahomes can beat the passing record, it's going to be through Rice. Worthy will get some big shots, but Rice is the day-to-day chain mover. Rice is the one worth owning.
I think Rice is definitely the one worth owning. And I probably would buy him, if I was doing 35 drafts in like an Eliminator style and I was sitting there, I'd probably buy him more often than not. I think that he has crazy good value right there. All right. I am not letting this guy scoop Likely. I think Likely is going to smash. I love that tight end room. All right, Joe. Who am I going to try to take from you?
I don't know who you're taking from me because you're not really taking anyone from me at this point. I got my queue built up. I know what I'm doing. I would have liked that Cam Moore to slide to me, though, to be totally honest with you.
Nice.
But it is what it is. Don't get a Ridley stack, so be it. I got Baker and Allen. I mean, realistically, if I'm relying on a third quarterback, it's because something horribly happened, and the NFL won't let Allen get hurt. So there's that.
Well, if Allen gets hurt, that team's in trouble with Mitch. be
Oh yeah,
close.
yeah. And the fact that I've got
gross.
like three, I've now taken 3 receivers stacking
So I
off
think,
of Allen.
Joe,
If Allen goes down, I just threw away
I think
$10.
the problem in Eliminator, as opposed to taking 3 quarterbacks in Superflex or in any other tournament style necessarily, is that this is only 18 rounds. So you don't have that baked in extraness of the last 2 rounds there. And I think that's why
That
I'm
is something
staying
to
away.
consider. That is an important thing. There's
I
I
think
only
I'm
got
staying
5
away
picks
from
left.
that. I would rather have the 3 tight ends, even though the third tight end shouldn't make your roster all the time. For me, I think these 3 tight ends in Kraft, Likely, and Kittle probably can put up numbers to end up in, in a flex potentially. I need to collect some wide receivers, so that's what I'm going to do the next couple of rounds. Just queue up a bunch of guys that may or may not hit. I love Mason Taylor, so anybody out there like Mason Taylor with Fields, I think is a good play. I think if you have Cam,
you love Mason Taylor, there's no reason to justify it.
There's
I
no
don't
reason.
understand it at all. Aside from the ESPN hype machine.
The reason to like him is the fact of what I said earlier about teams that only have an alpha wide receiver and are going to have subpar quarterback play this year. Where does that land me on? Well, it lands me on
that land doing a lot of checkdowns to their
tight end, again, tight end, running back, and alpha wide receiver.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Historically, rookie tight ends suck. And the only ones that don't are the ones that first tight end taken off the board. And even those.
I agree with that. But insofar as that's true, I'm looking at a tight end that I could get in the 15th round that could potentially give me a top 5 tight end value.
I think he'll give you a 0 value every day, any day.
If he gives me a 0 value and he's my 3rd tight end, who cares?
Well, I mean, you could have got someone who could have given you value. That's the entire argument.
I doubt it. The argument is there for a guy like Gesicki too. I mean, like Gesicki is one. Like if you the reason, and this goes back to something you asked Recon about like player capital and things like that. Is looking at players and saying which ones do I want to pivot into and away from, right? And so like tight end is that position where I took George Kittle in the 4th round. I should have taken a wide receiver there, right? I should have got some wide receiver here, either Tet, JMO, or Worthy, because looking at my tight ends, I don't necessarily need George Kittle. That's the issue, is all of these guys down here, from Ingram, Mark Andrews, Njoku, Kraft, Kelsey, Tyler Warren, Isaiah Likely, Jake Ferguson, they could all put up the same numbers as those tight ends, Joe. And I think that's the reason why, showing you all this is important, because you can wait. You can absolutely wait on guys. And that's the position that you can wait the most on, I think.
Tight end.
I mean, we've said it again and again with, back end tight ends with family. This is the year to kind of just consider that. Who are some wide receiver running backs you are willing to reach a few spots ahead of their ADP?
Tillman.
Joe is a big Tillman guy. I'm willing to reach on Jacoby. I'm willing to reach a little bit on Golden, I think, in best ball here. I'm willing to definitely reach a little bit on Bucky and JT. I'm willing to take the hit on also Devontae Adams to an extent. JMO sometimes, Ridley also sometimes. I'm willing to, in this mixture of rounds here, do Rashad Bateman a little bit early, but I know he's been falling in certain drafts. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting player combinations that you can like buy up on, depending on the tournament style. So for me, those are kind of the guys. For Joe, Joe's definitely Tillman.
Look at that tight end around.
Mike Evans and Nico are guys that he's willing to go up on as well. Yeah, I don't
really know if going up on them. I'm getting them in the round appropriate, but I'm making sure that so I don't view the first round as like the hard. It's a first rounder is a first rounder. I've taken Miko 5th overall before. People think that's nuts, but I do it.
Yeah, I mean, in my DraftKings one, because I was drafting at the 1 hole, this was like many months ago. I just did a couple with like Nico and Puka at one, just to kind of see how the draft board would go. Yeah, Travis Kelce here dropped significantly. Pick 124, he usually goes somewhere in this area up here, round 9. Interesting. Yeah, so Recon, I want to I want to get in on this thing here is that having a script is as Bones says here, is don't like going by position, always best player available. I think when you have a script, less so thinking about a script, but less so thinking about your own drafting tendencies to be like, okay, I need to take the best player available, but I also need to take the best player available for what I potentially could see out of like my entire team this year, right? So like, if I go
I just did a script, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting the last 5 all in a row the same way I wanted them. So from Kincaid down, actually from Tillman down, it was a script for my team.
You might be. Joe follows that.
I believe in making my team the way I want it, and the reason I do that is because I tend to have guys that get clustered in like a 2-round area that I want 4 guys from. So by definition, I got to do a little bit of a reach to get the front end guys so they all get on my roster. But I don't care. They're the guys I want. Like, especially when you get past like the 11th round, there's truly not that much difference between Trey Benson and Will Shipley. You're hoping the starter gets hurt, you're going to make points.
Yeah. I mean, it's just situation. You're right. I mean, Will Shipley's situation, I think if I'm paying for Will Shipley, like this guy went Kyle Monangai. I mean, Kyle Monangai could be a definite smash. But you took DeAndre Swift.
Who the hell knows?
But you took DeAndre Swift. So why are you hoping DeAndre Swift gets hurt? Like that's kind of how
I never think you should handcuff yourself just as a role.
Well, especially not in the Eliminator here. Because you just devoted 2 weeks or your week 5 bye to 2 guys that you kind of want to pop off.
I had 0 bye overlap in my receiving room.
It's interesting.
And
I have
massive week 9 overlap in my running.
I mean, because I was talking and messing around, it auto picked Jack Beck for me. I did not want him, but that's okay.
So you gotta have a Q. This is the argument for the Q.
Well, it's the argument for the Q, but I can't queue up anybody because you're going to take them.
Dude, so I'm only watching at the board. You got to put my big board up.
So Magic, do I like Mixon or Walker more? I like Walker more. But here's the two.
For the record, I'm actually only looking at Underdog on both of my screens right now. I know it's recording me and transmitting it. That's why I need you to read the comments. I never see it.
So Magic, do I like Mixon or Walker more? I like Walker more for his upside. So you're going to go into every fantasy content maker out there is going to tell you his points per game was 12 per game. It was exceptional. Yes. But let's break down, what happened bad last year for Walker. Walker's situation, I think by like week 10, maybe 11, maybe even deeper in the season, he only had 99 carries because he always gets hurt. The offensive line was terrible. The coaching staff wanted to just throw, just kind of avoided the run most games. So he was getting like less than like 18 total touches a game, which is not what you want out of a potential RB1. Now, when you look at Ken Walker and you say, well, where's the upside? Well, it's a new coach. Zach Charbonnet is a good player, but not as good as Ken Walker. They got a different quarterback, and things are looking up. Well, what happened with Mixon? Mixon was a volume whore last year. But one of the things was when the Texans fell behind, they stopped using Joe Mixon as much. And, you could say the same thing for Tony Pollard. So will I mix it? And their offensive line didn't get any better. You could argue that it actually got worse. But you couldn't. I mean, like, reasonably speaking, they couldn't be any worse than they were last year because they were pretty bad. And so you ask yourself, well, Joe Mixon's not arguably the most efficient runner out there with a terrible offensive line. Volume might make no difference when you think about volume versus explosion. Where would I want it? Well, do you think Joe Mixon's going to spend more time in the red zone than Ken Walker? And do you think Ken Walker's going to have more touchdowns? I think potentially you could see both of these guys having 8 to 10 touchdowns on the year but maybe you see Walker having more yardage because Mixon is kind of a plotter behind this offensive line. There's reason to believe that there's reasonable reasons to take both of them. But I do like Walker way more. And I think Joe feels the same way. And it's not just because of the points per game, discussion. It's just because Ken Walker's an explosive player. When he's on the field, especially in best ball, he could get you 30 points a game. Mixon can do the same thing, but Mixon's going to need that 100-yard game. He's going to need 27 carries, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's going to need a little bit of help, whereas Walker can do it. It just depends on what he's going to, like, if he's going to be healthy, right? Joe, you ready to rack up another one?
I got to click a little pause button here first, but yeah, I'll give me a second.
Another one then. So how do you feel about the Magic? So it's just that I always miss on tight end. Recon says in the first 5 rounds. So I believe I can solidify my ship if I don't reach on tight end. I agree with that. So if you're worried about the tight end position, that's kind of the position that I'm least worried about. You just saw me take George Kittle. I didn't have to. Taking double onesies in the Eliminator is a little bit different than doing it in Best Ball Mania. But I think it could pay off.
Well, I gotta tell you, I think I like this roster I just built right here.
Taking Bowers in the second round, Bones said, is insane to me to take a tight end so early. In certain formats, it is. In most formats, it is. I think in redraft, enough people, they're going to see these best.
Right, guys, we're going to do another Eliminator. We're going to click it at 47 Eastern time. That is 4:47 Eastern time with the 20 seconds per pick.
So, Joe, when we look at redrafts, I think more people are going to be scared to draft tight ends in redraft, Bones, than in any other tournament. So, like best ball, if Bowers hits, great. You're going to hit elite production there. Now, if he doesn't, oh well, right? But in redraft,
3 spots open.
In redraft, where you only have the chance to get it right one time in redraft, I think more people are going to be pumping the brakes on tight end than ever before because the value on the back half of the board is so tremendous that you're going to get a spike week out of those guys. Like if you play David Njoku every week, he's going to have a top 8 performance, which in a home league is going to be enough for you to win your week. Like you don't need Brock Bowers to outperform a field of 30,000 other people. You only need David Njoku to beat out like 4 other tight ends. That's it. So like there's value in there. And I don't think people are going to really smash the button on tight end so much in home leagues as they would in best ball leagues. So Joe's at 12. I'm at 5. Nice position to be at. Love it, love it, love it. It's always been the tight end that was killing me. In the years I won the championship, Recon said beforehand, obviously I had some league-winning players, but Njoku and some other tight ends did well for me. Yeah, if you do a strategy of like, okay, play tight ends to matchups, Joe, I think that's a tremendous strategy to use in your redraft home leagues.
Well, that's what you use a redraft. You can't do it in best ball.
Because let's face it, we say, okay, like tight ends are only ever hitting, unless you have Bowers or McBride, rarely are tight ends hitting that like wide receiver targets like a game. And you can make a reasonable argument for guys like Higbee or Ferguson later in your home league drafts because they're going to use them. They're going to utilize them. So where do Bowers and McBride rank amongst all PPR scorers, excluding quarterbacks? I'm going to have to actually look that one up after the draft here. It's got to be pretty high, though. Got to be pretty high. We are going to take C.
All right.
I
see some reaches against your guys. That's what you're going to see on this turn.
I thought about Derrick Henry there for a minute. I thought about Christian McCaffrey for a minute. I like Christian McCaffrey in this tournament potentially. He has a week 14 bye, so he gets you into the money if he plays a tremendous season. So McBride amongst all PPR scorers. Let me pull that up here. So when we go to PPR and we look at overall scoring, And we just take a look, and this data is coming from Fantasy Pros. So, everybody uses this. So it's an easily accessible source. Brock Bowers ended up, if you exclude week 18 and you don't include that, he ended up at 247.7 points. And McBride ended with 230.3 points. George Kittle was the second best tight end from weeks 1 to 17 last year. When you go overall, and, it doesn't give me the option to take out quarterbacks, but quarterbacks, so we have one. Going down the list even more. Brock Bowers, when Brock Bowers was ranked below James Conner. When you eliminate week 18, Brock Bowers' total PPR scoring was below James Conner. So he was the best tight end, but it was below Conner. So that's something to really kind of sink your teeth into, Joe, to be honest with you. And again, I'm going to list just some guys here for you, Magic, that he was behind. And again, this is top tight end production. He's behind Connor, Chase Brown, Malik Neighbors, James Cook, CeeDee Lamb, Kamara, BTJ, and this isn't in points per game. This is not points per game. If you go to points per game, his 15.5 points per game last year puts him below David Montgomery and below James Conner. So right in that same kind of framework as Jackson Smith and Jigba, Trey McBride and him both had the same kind of points per game, and Terry McLaurin. So there's reason to believe that really doesn't track. When you think about how do you want to build your team, people are going to think you're getting insane value with Brock Bowers down here at, pick 23. But realistically speaking, even in this tournament, it's not that great.
It's an advantage.
It's not a huge advantage. So we're going to see who falls here.
All the quarterbacks are falling.
Well, I mean, if I can click Josh Allen again, I'm clicking Josh Allen.
You didn't click him last time.
Well, no, I said I clicked Lamar last time, but I've clicked Josh Allen before. All right. So we're just going to take Lamar again. Scare people enough that they're going to want to take Jalen Hurts a little bit early, because Joe's probably going to take Jalen Hurts a little bit early.
I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. We're going to do the third person. I've already built my queues, baby.
Good for you, Recon. If you can go to the Chiefs-Bills game this year, that's going to be amazing.
And also, by the guys, for everyone who's watching
Jamie, what's up, man?
Like and subscribe and watch us live.
Joe,
we go 3
Joe and I were talking about Joe and I were talking, Jamie, about Scott Fishbowl recently. We just did our live version, and we're in the middle of our drafts right now. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. I like that Fantasy Life has the Scott Fishbowl tool to see like what everybody's up to. Redraft. I think I'm just gonna take late tight ends and kind of just sit with that. Pulling out. This is the thing. When we talk about positional advantage, right? I agree with you that there is a degree of positional advantage that you want to have, but I also don't want positional disadvantage at my other thing. So a lot of content creators are going to push for you to say, you're getting a positional advantage with Brock Bowers. You're getting a positional advantage with Brock Bowers. Hey, by the way, who was again, I want to preface this to say that the targets were really weird last year because Jameis Winston, but David Njoku was the 4th best in average tight end points per game, 13.5 to George Kittle's 16. So there's a 2-point differential, and we're talking redraft there, 2-point differential between Brock Bowers and Njoku, but that is a 8-round difference. Okay, 8-round difference. You go now down to Sam Laporta, who picked it up during the last 5 games of the season. It is a 5-point difference from Brock Bowers to Sam Laporta. You do this experiment with the closest kind of build. Let's just take CeeDee Lamb and Rashad Bateman, right? CD Lamb's up here at 17.6 points per game, which is higher than Brock Bowers by a point, right? But then, you come down with some, and you look at Rashad Bateman, 9.8. So you see a difference there in almost 8 points. So there is, I know you disagree with that, but there's also to say that like there is a reasonable argument to make of why people are lower on tight ends than most years, because they've been burned so much pulling. So, the argument for Brock Bowers, as we've given this argument before pulling. So, this isn't to say don't draft him, but the argument for Bowers and McBride, because I drafted McBride, in the Scott Fishbowl contest with 3.5 points per reception. But when you look at Bowers and McBride, their positive regression has to be in the touchdown market, where, you're looking at this and saying, well, Brock Bowers can get to 10, I'll take him. Trey McBride can get to 10 touchdowns, I'll take him. Why not? Right? But the why not is that there are other guys there that are better value that you can get. It's not to say you shouldn't take them. It's just that it's a little bit harder of a click for most people when they feel that they need to get an advantage elsewhere on the board.
Bob, I want to point something else going on in this draft. And we talk a lot about you don't want to handcuff yourself. And this is an overall, full disclosure, hating on T. Higgins argument. T and Chase do not go off in the same week. They don't.
Rarely.
It just doesn't happen.
Rarely.
So by taking T and Chase, you essentially have punted on one of your first 3 picks. And I get that it looks so awesome because you got Burrow stacking them, but it's not a good build. It's not a long-term profitable build. Now, granted, it does give you a better floor, which is what Survivor's all about, but what it doesn't do is give you the upside. And since you're taking someone crazy like Tyreek, who's an all-or-nothing player, it's not a consistent build. You look at mine is all floor, high-end floor, and that's what we're going to keep pushing these buttons for. And if Devontae Smith somehow falls to me, I'm going to jump out of this chair.
Yeah. So Jamie, the slow drafts are killing me. I know I said this last week,
God, they're killing me.
But
too.
like I have such a hard time with slow drafts, and I guess that's why I didn't match the contest, because it's like I'm just waiting on pins and needles. Like every time, it's like, come on, like let's go. Like these slow drafts, we're almost done. We have like 4 rounds left, but it's very difficult for me.
Dude, we've only got like 4 picks in person.
Here's the thing. Right. You're absolutely right. You don't know when the spike weeks are going to hit, and that's good for best ball. But it's also the reason to say, all right, is it worth taking time? Again, going to Fantasy Pros, we're going to go to half PPR settings right now. And when we look at half PPR settings, Brock Bowers is 2 points ahead of David Njoku, 3 points ahead of Mark Andrews, and Travis Kelce 3 points ahead of him, who had a down year, and 3 points ahead of Sam Laporta, who had a down year. So you look at it, who's the next one up after that? Well, it's Tucker Kraft at 8.3 points. Now, is that tremendous? No. Do you want that 12 points from Brock Bowers? Yes, absolutely. When we think about spike weeks last year, Isaiah Likely had a spike week. Here are the number 1 tight ends from last year, Joe, after I make this pick so that we can continue here. Make this cue. So here are the number 1 tight ends from a week-to-week basis. Isaiah Likely, week 1. George Kittle. Dallas Goedert. Taysom Hill. Tucker Kraft. Cole Kmet. Jonnu. Cade Otton. Mike Gesicki. Travis Kelce. Taysom Hill. Noah Gray. Brock Bowers. George Kittle. Jonnu. Brock Bowers, and Trey McBride. So, while I said Brock Bowers' name multiple times, there was also some weeks where it was like not great. So, I mean, I get your point. Like, I'm not saying I have anything against the guy, but, there is some advantage to not taking that top end tight end and just waiting. All right. So hopefully we get one of these guys. Hopefully maybe the bring back of Matthew Golden in week 17 if I make it there. Now, and again, I don't like Zay Flowers, but I took him here. Because again, the same thing about like Zay, right, Joe, is that he didn't get the touchdowns last year, but he also had like a 32-point game. He's just a PPR merchant. So like, do you want a guy like that on your team?
For Underdog, Zay is way less valuable on Underdog.
Maybe. I mean, maybe he's less valuable for sure. But I mean, stacking him up with Lamar, is he worth it? Probably not. But again, like a couple of swings here and there. If he has positive touchdown regression, you could say to yourself, that's a reasonable pick, reasonable click. I'm going to take Judkins here. I don't often take Judkins. So you did the live podcast yesterday, Jamie, with Fantasy Football Universe, and we'll be live again as a guest on Optimus Fantasy for another mock. So anybody checking out Jamie's channel, doing a lot of mocks for Scott Fishbowl contests. It was a reasonably interesting experience to have all those guys in the room.
It was. There was no super flex quarterback run that I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, and Bones, I like McBride better than Bowers. McBride in the third is a lot more palatable to me than Brock Bowers in the first or Brock Bowers in the second, because the differential between them isn't as high. Again, pulling, I am fine with that. Drafting CD here as the second wide receiver overall in this league, or the third wide receiver overall, I get that. I was only taking CD as a comparison. You can take him to like Amon-Ra, Nico, Malik Neighbors, Jefferson, Drake London, AJ Brown, any of those guys that you want. And I more so saying it's not necessarily about that comparison between Brock Bowers and CD. It's about the comparison in value from Brock Bowers to, David Njoku in the 10th round versus CD Lamb to the next best 10th round wide receiver. Because that's kind of you're in these drafts so much pulling, and I think you'll notice it, just going in, doing your own research, doing your own stuff, but also doing, watching our channel, is that this zone here, 8, 9, 10, 11, is primarily a bunch of tight ends, right, Joe? Bunch of tight ends, bunch of quarterbacks start coming off the board. And the wide receivers in this scenario, they can have spike weeks, like I mentioned, like Bateman. But again, like you're looking at it and you're saying, well, who do I take if I don't like any of those wide receivers? Am I going to take another tight end? Probably. You saw me in the last draft. If you were watching, I drafted Kittle early, and I still took Tucker Kraft and Isaiah Likely in this middle section because they're the best value there. I mean, so I just lost out on my advantage that I had. And I kind of just hedged myself a little bit, which is, again, it's something you can do, but it's not necessarily the best thing that you want to do all the time. But if you're maxing it, sure, go with the flow of things. Absolutely, Johnny. Send the trade in. And Bones, as it goes to
love talking
quarterback situation. Yeah, new quarterback, new OC. I would also say, pulling, if you really, 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 really like Brock Bowers, just take a look at how Geno and even that scheme fit uses tight ends. I know, they have to use Brock Bowers. They're going to use Brock Bowers. That's where Brock Bowers is going to shine. But also, I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in Thornton or Beck yet. But if you want that production, why not take Jacoby in round 7, right? Because Jacoby's still there. He can easily ping those numbers as well. I don't necessarily see it as a huge advantage going after him. Stuck there at 3 again. Do I play for the late week? Do I play another quarterback here? We'll see what happens.
Tough call, Bob. You got to figure it out.
I also like the potential of Igbuka, but again, Kyler Murray's still there though. That's a hard click for me to pass up, but I'll pass it up this time.
I don't get why you're so obsessed with Kyler.
I get why people hate him, but
I've made many a video about why you should hate Kyler Murray.
So Jamie's show starts tonight at 8, guys. So after you check us out, a couple hours later, grab some dinner, check out Jamie's channel. He'll be on Optimus tonight. It's a good show. League size and format for the trade also starting 8-11 starting roster. Yeah. Let us know, Johnny, how many people are in the league in the format too. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Poulin. So, like, if you were here for our Superflex draft, feel free to go back and look at those. I was drafting a whole lot of Geno Smith, and I was stacking him up with Jacoby and Brock Bowers. So, like, this is coming from a guy who has drafted him. But I think they are going to surprise some people. But I do think that at the wild card of everything is Ashton Genty. Because Ashton Genty could be an absolute terror for defenses. But again, they have some decent run defenses in that division. So that could relegate him in certain games. But you drafted him high, you're going to use him. I think he's just an interesting player overall. So let's get to Johnny's trade here. It's a 10-team league. I have Dak, Caleb, and Shadur sitting on my taxi squad. I've been offered Tua, Quinshon Judkins, and an early 2026 second. Is this an obvious smash? Yeah. Is it super flex? And are you offering one of those quarterbacks? Who are you trading out of, Johnny? And who do you want to trade? Who do you want to trade into? Like, do you like those guys is what I would say. All right, we're going to click. We're going to click Jordan Love here. So seeing that board there, I don't really like that. Jordan Love probably won't make it back to me. We'll see. But I took him anyway, so we'll see where that stands. A lot of quarterbacks already come off the board. 2 guys with just one quarterback here, so we'll see. So I have Hampton. Johnny says, I have Hampton, Henderson, Etienne, and Ray Davis at running back. Yes, it's super flex. I'm trading out of Dak and Shadur. I hear you, Johnny. We had families over in New Zealand, so you guys are close together there. So looking at the trade, he has Hampton, Henderson, and Etienne, and Ray Davis, and he'd be trading out of Dak and Shadur. So that would set his team with Caleb, Tua, and Judkins and an early 2026. I would do that. I think that getting that level of talent on your team, I think you kind of need to do it. Dak is, I think, a player that is easy to start for me. I would start him over a couple other quarterbacks in the league right now. But I do think that the value that you're going to be getting in return is really, really good. Take Trey Harris there. So, like, looking at the trade in totality, Joe, we're looking at moving out of Dak, moving out of Shadur, and then your team would then have in a super flex league Caleb and Tua, and you would be adding Judkins to the combination of Hampton, Henderson, and Etienne and Ray Davis. Would you do it?
Well, yeah, because Shadur is a name that's at his peak of value right now because he will suck. So getting rid of him is a good thing. I mean, you're so vulnerable because Tua's one slight breeze away from never playing football again. I mean, that guy farts wrong or doesn't wake up right in the morning. I mean, he could be done forever. So that's the thing with Tua. But you're definitely improving your team. You're maximizing a horrendous asset that people think are good in Shadur. So yeah, no, I'm good with doing that. And that I am not good with.
And to add that in, yeah, I mean, you're just getting a free second rounder in value. And I would also say to you, too, Johnny, that if you don't feel comfortable with Tua as your second quarterback in a super flex league, maybe you want to create a package with Tua and Etienne and maybe keep it moving a little bit more. I know people, Jordan Love had a bad year towards the back end of the year after recovering from an injury. I kind of am willing to click him more often than not in super flex leagues. And Dak, again, Dak could go up, could go down. I'm hoping Dak stays up because I have CD here. We'll see how the lay of the land works there. So Tua here gets drafted 12th round, Joe. Hopefully one of my guys will be available to me. Probably going to click.
I was really hoping Stroud was going to come to me there. That was not awesome.
That was not awesome. I'm going to click blue here because I don't think he'll make it back to me. I'm not fighting over this room. I like Josh Jacobs, Kamara, Judkins, Tyrone Tracy, blue. They could all smash. What's your team looking like? You got Bucky, Chuba, Montgomery. Okay. All right. Godwin as the second wide receiver. Okay. Playing a little tight there. That's what I did the first time.
Playing floor, baby. Playing floor.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome, Johnny. You're welcome. We appreciate you tuning in too. Yeah, I saw this, Jamie. I think that is super interesting. That
what's that?
Shadur is on the CFL's watch. So the CFL is potentially, I think it's the Argonauts. I think maybe Montreal. So Toronto or Montreal is in discussion, or they're trying to get Shadur to play in the CFL, Joe.
If they open up a loaner policy to Canadian football, it would be the best thing for both leagues. The soccer teams do it where you can have our younger players for a year or two, and then we get them back after. If they can open up, that might be the best thing that should ever be positively thought of in my mind. That if he could be the one that say, hey, we know you're never going to make this team, because he won't. But you can actually get playing time, get experience, etc. It would be revolutionary. It would be incredibly powerful for the league overall. Yeah, that might be the only way that guy could redeem himself.
For me, like Shadur as an asset right now, like I've clicked him in some best ball leagues, in super flex leagues, but he is a falling asset. So like his ADP in super flex particularly, and his current ADP here, don't really tell the story about like how he's being drafted. So like when you click Shadur, you're going to see an ADP of 215 here. In Superflex, he had an ADP of like 155, but more, I would say like 35 to 45% of the time, you could get him 20 to 30 spots below his ADP. And that is really interesting to me when we talk about a guy that I can't say when you drafted him in your dynasty league, that had all the hype surrounding him. And then as it fell, like getting drafted after a guy like Tyler Shook, who people aren't really into right now. I see many reasons why people aren't into him, but I like him. And I think that what we need to think about with Shadur, right, is that he came from a system with his dad. People, whether you like his dad or not, really kind of plays a role in, do you really want Shadur and Dion kind of just talking all over you all the time? And because the Browns have been, borderline poverty franchise for quite some time now, I guess why not take a chance because he slipped so low? Again, they drafted Dylan Gabriel.
No, I think he should have not been drafted is the reality.
He could turn into like a Maurice Claret situation where, draft capital expended into him and it just doesn't turn out. Falling Jonnu Smith here, interesting. That ADP of 138.
I considered him, but I needed a second quarterback.
It's interesting. I might take him. I might take him and Gesicki, maybe. We'll see. Again, I like Mason Taylor. I'm willing to click Mason Taylor with this team. I'm just not sure about Jonnu, especially with Freiermuth there.
Well, before the Jonnu trade, we had Freiermuth as a potential top 5 guy when we were doing our rankings based upon the playoff push. That has nothing to do with the Eliminator. So it's very different rankings. So It's just an interesting way of looking at it.
Well, again, he's one of those guys that after the trade, he takes a 30, like you see this down here, guys. He takes a 30 spot ADP dip.
Sounds right.
So guys, like previously, when we look at previous versions of this tournament, Jonnu was going 7th, 8th, 9th round. Now you're looking at him 14th round. Is there value there? Maybe as a second tight end? Sure. There's enough value on the plate to kind of just be like, hey, let's take a chance on that, right? I mean, it's not no skin off my back if he doesn't hit, to be honest with you. You're looking at, and here's the other thing, a lot of tight ends still available, a lot of back end running backs still available for you to take your shots on. We're at 2.552 right now. Probably going to roll into another wide receiver here, a guy I click often in Pierce. So we'll take that.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do the same thing as last week, a 3.663.
Yeah, Jamie, as I said, and Joe will disagree with both you and me, but Mason Taylor, I think when we look at teams, and I think this is the reason, I'm not saying this because, for anybody that is joining us that doesn't know Joe and I, when we were doing some pre-draft stuff before Brock Bowers was drafted, we thought that Brock Bowers should have been drafted by Indianapolis because Brock Bowers was one of the best overall talents coming out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so when he went to the Raiders and the Raiders
and this is in hindsight, you can go back and watch this.
And you had it as a dearth of talent on the Raiders, right? So you're looking at Jacoby, but then you have Aiden O'Connell as the starting quarterback.
And they still had Adams at the time.
You had Gardner Minshew as well, and Adams was the the number one, but who knew how much Adams was going to play that year for the Raiders? Brock Bowers coming into that situation, right? Like when he has overall elite upside because he was reasonably with that quarterback situation. Aiden O'Connell's not the best quarterback, so throwing to Brock Bowers makes a lot of sense. Geno is a better quarterback per se than Aiden O'Connell. He will spread the ball out a little bit more, so won't be so targeted. That's the reason to kind of like a guy like Mason Taylor, right? Where Mason Taylor is going to get catered targets because Justin Fields is not a good passer. He can't see the field. And if Mason Taylor is there, reasonably speaking, he's the only tight end there other than Stone Smart. They moved off of Conklin. If you want to say, oh, well, maybe he goes after Alan Lazard. Maybe he goes after Anais Smith, or maybe Michael Corley starts to make a jump. Doubtful. And I could take the Cade Otton dip, but I'm buying Mason Taylor on this pick. Isaiah Likely, Jonnu, Mason Taylor. I think that's good enough for a nice weekly floor out of tight ends with potential for tight end 1 overall upside. Mason,
I'm leaning into my buckets. I said I was going to do a 3.663. I'm not. I'm going to do a 3.582.
You have 3 quarterbacks. You have Hurts, Darnold, A-Rich. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To each their own.
Richardson is a complete lottery pick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I wholeheartely agree with that statement.
I feel you're getting the same potential of success as you do with Fields.
Why
spend so much money?
I also like Theo Johnson. For anybody in the chat right now that is looking for a player to buy for the price that he's at, where he could potentially just go off, it's Theo Johnson. It's the same argument, right, Joe? He showed upside potential in the back half of the season. You have a number 1 overall target hog, and then your running backs. Your next best player on that team, you could say it's Jalen Hyatt. You could say it's Darius Slayton. You could say it's Wan'Dale Robinson, but it's most likely going to be catered to Theo Johnson. And Theo is another one of those players where, Bellinger is still there. Okay, whatever. But I think they got Greg Dulcich too for some reason. But you look at it and you say, okay, well, if I'm taking a tight end in the 18th round who could scream upside, why not? And Russell Wilson fed Freiermuth. too, just as a note. So if Russell Wilson stays the starting quarterback in the Giants, he fed him. Oh, also, Jameis Winston fed David Njoku. So if Theo Johnson is even just a quarter to a half as good as those players could be on a week-to-week basis, Joe, a guy like Theo Johnson is a guy that I want to have on many rosters. So if I wouldn't have taken Jonnu there, this team probably would have been likely Mason Taylor and
all right,
Theo
Bob,
Johnson.
I think you might have talked me to Theo Johnson right there.
There's literally zero reason not to take him. Right?
How tall is Valdez-Scantling?
What'd you say?
How tall?
Valdez-Scantling is one of my favorite clicks too, but
how tall is he?
I don't know. But yeah, so it's like it's just kind of one of those discussion points that
the only tall one there is the point.
That is interesting enough, right? So Pat Freiermuth last year had a 14-point week, a 15-point week, a 12-point week.
Ooh, Blake Corum not late to steal.
The rest were okay, So it's like, why not? But Russell Wilson was also trying to get it to George Pickens, who just kept on dropping the ball too. So
Russell Wilson's not an accurate quarterback anymore.
That's why tight ends are nice. Yeah, and I'm finding myself clicking more Jalen Coker. I know that there's more competition in that room right now, but I'm okay with it. I also like Fannin as the opposite of Njoku. If you're looking for some value there, Njoku versus Fannin, especially in best ball, I think is okay. Sean Tucker's a fun click if you're not taking Bucky. I could go 2, 6, 7, 3. Okay, there goes Coker. Ray McLeod's an interesting click. Or we'll take the fun click. We'll take Sean Tucker. Why not? All right, Joe. So let's take a look at this room before we go any further here. So we're at the end of the draft board. A couple of dart throws down here. A-Rich is always going to be a dart throw. If you can get Anthony, again, he might play, he might not. But if he does play, you're either going to get like 7 points or 28. So if you're taking him as your third quarterback, second quarterback in this kind of tournament, there's nothing to say. There's nothing wrong with that. You get Hurts, you get Sam Darnold, you get Anthony Richardson. You give yourself a safe and a high floor with Hurts. You get Darnold with a little bit of spice and Anthony Richardson. I mean, there's reason to believe that like if you're taking one of these top end guys like Josh Allen, Lamar, Jane Daniels, or Hurts, or even Burrow, that you probably would want to avoid this area of quarterback. I'm not saying completely. I clicked Jordan Love there, but you could probably avoid it most likely until you get to the Cam Ward, Stafford, Darnold kind of discussion, and then take one of these four or five guys late. They can smash. I mean, Daniel Jones, I believe a couple years back had some 20-point games as well, Jim. So,
sure did.
There's tremendous amount of value there. And as you can see,
if Anthony Richardson was not a first-round pick, if Anthony Richardson was a second-round pick, Daniel Jones would be the no-doubt starter in Indianapolis.
Well,
he's more talented and more consistent. However, they invested their souls into Anthony Richardson. I'm just following the fact they're going to have to play him.
So I want to point out something really interesting here, Joe. So we have Jonnu at 164. Again, this was a 30 spot ADP dip in Jonnu. But Freiermuth at 200. I am very curious to see so his ADP fell from, he was sitting, Joe, his ADP, I believe, a couple weeks ago.
So 198 is what it was. So.
Prior to this trade was somewhere in that like Hunter Henry range. So he was sitting up at like 155. He's fallen 40 spots ADP. So nobody knows what to do with Jonnu and Freiermuth. The only thing that people know,
everyone does know, the Steelers do not support two receivers. They don't.
I mean, it's just to completely drop them. It's insane. So Joe, I know you might not be able to stay for a third one, but I'm going to
I am not going to be able to stay, but you guys get to stay and hang out. Bob got you in good hands, man. Take care of it. Keep it minty.
All right. So we're going to rack up a third one, guys. I'm going to click at 526. So at 526, I'm going to click the Eliminator to enter. Anybody that wants to join in, we're doing another Eliminator right now. If you click join in, 526 is when I'm going to click enter. Again, they haven't been filling super fast, but who knows what this one will provide for us. We're going to do 526. We're going to enter another Eliminator. Feel free, if you're in the chat, throw down. Let's join in on another Eliminator here. So at 526, we're going to do another Eliminator. So we're going to enter it hopefully soon. So 526 Eastern Standard Time. We're using Eastern Standard Time here. We're on the East Coast. So 526 is when we're going to click it. We also have some people making picks in Scott Fishbowl, which is nice. So we're going to talk again, just talk through strategy here as we click in. Anybody that wants to click in, we're going to do another one, waiting for one person. All right, so let's get down. Let's see what the room is filled. We ended up in the 5-hole again. So if you weren't here for all the drafts that we just did, we just had 4 and a 5. Joe was down low in the 12-hole last time. It's very easy to click running back in the top 5. You know, your Gibbs, your Barkley, your Bijan. And then, you know, you get dealer's choice at wide receiver. If you like J. Jeff, if you like CD, take them. If you want to take another running back. Again, this is Eliminator. Looking at the format for Eliminator, you get out of week 1. All you need to do is beat 6 other guys in your pod. And then it's a matchup, 3-seat final. This is a fun tournament. Again, if you make it to week 14, you're guaranteeing yourself 10 grand. So there are many ways to play the Eliminator. We've been talking about playing guys with high floors and some upside. But again, thinking of it and you're looking at it and most people say, oh, well, this is kind of like a cash contest. Yes, to a degree, but there's a chance that come week 8, you're also playing guys that have a lot of week 8 buys. There's a chance that maybe you're not. So thinking about that is really important when we think about the scope of the Eliminator. Week 8 is going to be rough for some people. So we'll see how things fall schedule-wise and things like that. So I clicked CD last time. I wanted to click McCaffrey and Henry. I think, you know, I'm going to click. I'm going to click J. Jeff. So we got J. Jeff on this team. Again, don't draft J. Jeff often. I'm not sure I fully believe in JJ McCarthy to start the year. So, you know, JJ and Justin Jefferson in this type of tournament, you might see J. Jeff fall a little bit more, less so to a degree. So we just queued up another one, guys. So in this Eliminator, we want to think about a lot of different things. We want to think about, am I going to get out of the first round? Am I going to, what upside do I have as the season goes on? We'll see. So how we're going to play this, probably coming back at 2029, I'm probably going to want to get a running back here, but if the wide receiver value falls enough, I'll take a wide receiver. Puka, again, unless you're at the back end here, it's tempting to take Puka at 5. He goes as early as 6, as late as 12. Rarely makes it out of that round. Again, week 8 bye. Pay attention to Justin Jefferson has one of those week 6 buys, so you get a little bit of an off week there. So feel free to join the chat if you are joining us right now. We wrapped up our third Eliminator of the day. Playing it differently each time. Some of the players on the back end, we've taken, you know, common players like Pierce, a couple different tight end strategies. Maybe this one is the one where we take a high-end tight end. We'll see. If McBride is there at 29, maybe we pivot off of the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson kind of build. We'll see. I really like Team 12 here. Really high upside with Devin Achane on a week-to-week basis. Jonathan Taylor, safe enough floor where you're investing in high draft capital there. Hoping that at 36 or 37, you're looking at probably Adams and Evans, which gives you enough of a safe floor. This combination here, I've seen a couple of times in weekly winners. I've seen a couple of times in Best Ball Mania. Malik Neighbors and Nico Collins could definitely pay you out for sure. This combination of Puka and Drake London is going to be high volume, really high volume. I think that that's a good enough combination for a tournament like this, where you do need to start 3 wide receivers, so keep that in mind. In the last couple of builds, I've waited on building my second, third, even my first wide receiver. So Bucky comes off the board there. If A.J. Brown is still available here, I'll probably click him. I also like Chase Brown in this scenario too. We clicked Josh Jacobs last time. All right, so there goes Josh Jacobs. So we're going to take A.J. Brown. Gives us a nice high upside wide receiver grouping. Decently high floor as well if everything works out in our favor. You see Brock Bowers go. You're probably going to see Trey McBride somewhere between 27 and 34 here, guys. So if you do like, if you're in the Eliminator, we're just showing you some strategy here. Many ways to approach it. Joe had to leave, but Joe and I, we took up 2 Eliminators prior. A lot of people, this third round is kind of very decisive. You're going to see quarterbacks start to come off the board here. You see Lamar coming off at 2 there. Josh Allen might fall to 29. We'll see. Is there value there? Absolutely, there's value in taking a high-end quarterback with a 40-point plus upside. Baker also has something like that as well. So Josh Allen did not fall to us there. We might get Chase Brown. If Chase Brown's there, we'll take Chase Brown. If he's not there, we might take Trey McBride there. But I can't pass up Garrett Wilson. I like T on a week-to-week basis too. Trey McBride went. We'll click Garrett Wilson. We talked a little bit about, target distribution just recently. While Justin Fields isn't the best quarterback out there, the target distribution is going to heavily favor Mason Taylor and Garrett Wilson and Brees to a degree. So we'll see how that ends up for us. Starting with 3 wide receivers, we did get running backs early last time. This draft is a little bit different. In our first one, if you go back to watch the first one, you'll see a swath of running backs from pick 1 to 6, and then the rest of it was wide receivers to start, really. This one is slightly more balanced. Jane Daniels slipping there to 33. Not really a slip. That's kind of where he's been going. But you'll see in the Eliminator, running backs climb up the board drastically because you want to make it from a week-to-week basis. Going 3 wide receivers here, I don't normally like to do that because having a 20-plus point upside running back is really, really important when you're going to be facing teams that most likely also have 20-point plus side running backs. So we have a 4 running back build to start the gate, a 3 running back build to start the gate here. This running back build taking Kamara a little bit early because Kamara definitely wasn't going to continue to fall like that. So let's continue to see where this takes this person because this is going to fall where we took running backs real early last time too. These wide receivers, you're going to have to really mess with the market there a little bit on the wide receivers. And it really doesn't give you any flexibility for falling value. So that's the other thing too. When you go, like I did, 3 wide receivers, or you go 4 running backs to start or 3 running backs to start, you're kind of not able to get as much falling value as you might want. So, if Hurts is there, love to take him. Doubt he will make it back. But if he is there, I will take him. And we'll see what happens. Because the Hurts to A.J. Brown would be nice to stack up, but it's not a necessity in this tournament specifically. So there goes George Kittle. So you got 1, 2, 3 tight ends off the board already. Jalen Hurts fell. So we're taking Hurts. So still don't have a running back coming out of those rounds. So we're really going to have to pump running back most likely rounds 5, 7, and 8. Maybe Ken Walker will make it back to us. If Ken Walker doesn't make it back to us, which he won't, James Conner will probably be the click there. And if he doesn't end up making it back, I could see myself with the team structured the way it is right now with either Sutton or JMO. So if you have any question, guys, feel free to drop them in the chat. Again, we're just doing an eliminator here. This is our third one of the day. So if you want to catch the other two, we were talking about strategy with everybody in the chat, talking about, ways to approach different styles and ways to approach your draft room here. Like I said to you guys earlier, I'm not a big Joe Mixon guy. Who's going to be there when it comes back? I think we'll click Joe Mixon there. Again, Joe Mixon in the 5th. He's one of those guys that I'm not clicking often. I'll click him occasionally here and there. People are really solid on guys like Mixon and Connor, but there's injury history. There is a chance that there's a shift in the culture there. There's a lot of question marks, I think, more so. Joe Mixon has proven himself to be a guy that could be valuable for fantasy purposes. He has had elite level games, but he is a volume whore. We've said this over and over again. So if that line is as bad as we know it is, Joe Mixon might have a hard time returning value even in the 5th round, guys. So, he's a player that I'm often really not clicking. I really don't like clicking him. RJ Harvey, pretty nice click there. 5 straight running backs for T Falls. So first wide receiver is Juwan Jennings, Swift, Kamara, Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Achane. I don't recommend that, mainly because in this tournament, you're getting 2 running back positions and 1 flex. So you've just guaranteed yourself that 2 out of your first 5 picks are not going to even play. So with that much draft capital, I don't think that that's a smart decision to do. It does kind of screw me, but again, who cares? Who cares about me? All right, if Rome is there, I'll click Rome. I've been clicking a lot of Jacoby today. Rome, I've clicked once. So we'll see if Rome is there. If he is, we'll click him. High upside. Chris Olave is an interesting pick. I think Olave is a very interesting pick if you've already built up your wide receiver room. Especially seeing that, this guy's got Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Chris Olave. I think Chris Olave is a 3 or a 4. It's really comfortable. Again, concussion issues, scrambled brains, but it could be problematic for you. But if he hits, that 6th round value is nice. So coming here in the 7th round, we'll probably need one of these 2 guys. Probably click one of them. Tracy will most likely be on this team. I might take a chance on Travis Etienne, even though I'm not a huge fan of him. Ramondre probably will be built on this team as a hedge to the, Ken Walker that we built earlier. Taking Charbonnet is interesting. Spears, interesting enough. Jacoby might still be there, so if we have to click him, we will. But ideally, we would want Aaron Jones. Ideally. All right. Well, that wasn't delightful. We'll take Jacoby. So again, looking at this from just a strategy perspective, for those of you that are going out there and doing eliminators, flexibility is really important. Building flexibility into your lineup is really important. So these 3 wide receiver starts, these multiple running back starts, definitely kind of limits you on your flexibility. Taking a look at Adams, Pickens, Olave, and Addison, while that's a really good room, you took 3 running backs early. Very good players with high volume in the eliminator. But again, like I said, it really limits your flexibility. Me taking Jalen Hurts and not Ken Walker. My second running back is not going to have a tremendous amount of upside here. This wide receiver room, of course, though, is a little bit more stable. I had 2 week 9 buys. I take a 5 and an 8. We're going to be pretty solid for those bye weeks. So I'm probably not going to push a lot of wide receivers in the next 2 rounds. We'll see. Ideally, we want Tracy here. Tracy as an RB2 isn't as much of a blessing as it would be as an RB3, RB4. Hopefully he's still there. I also like Josh Downs here. Josh Downs should be a good target earner this year, regardless of quarterback situation. Michael Pittman is another guy, skating down a lot of boards that is probably going to have a decent amount of value this year for everybody as well. So Tyron Tracy's there. We're clicking Tracy. And there have been, I don't normally like to handcuff my running backs. We say this all the time here on the channel. Handcuffing your running backs in these big best ball tournaments, probably not the best idea. But I have had a couple of teams, not in the Eliminator, with Tracy and Scadaboo as like running back like 5 or running back 4 and running back 5. It's an interesting enough play when you get that deep in the weeds. So we're 8th round. I like Matt Golden as well. Pittman here, I think, is good enough value. Love Ingram, but I'm not going to take an early tight end right now. Couple of these quarterbacks, people are really high on Drake May. I see it to a degree, but I'm not drafting him so much as most people are. Might have to shoot Najee here for the potential early value and kind of just call it a day. All right. We'll hope that Najee's not a fun click, guys, but we'll hope that when Najee starts the season pretty strongly, and we can have Mixon and Tracy in there to back us up. Again, we have 5 wide receivers. We can start 4 of them on a week-to-week basis, so we're pretty solid in that regard, I think, as well. Having Jalen Hurts there as the quarterback 1 stops us maybe from taking a quarterback in this 9-10 range, 10, 11, 12 maybe. You're going to start to see a lot of quarterbacks start to come off the board. In this one, 5 quarterbacks came off the board. If you take a look at what we've done in the last 2 eliminators, you're going to see a decent amount of different quarterbacks. The quarterback arrangement is way different. This one, definitely, your wide receivers, these are pushing up the board a little bit in this draft. Matthew Golden, I think, went a little bit later in the one we just did. But because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 early quarterbacks here, we're not pushing the value at quarterback, so that quarterback value is falling to the back end now. So just keeping your head on a swivel about that is, pretty important. This could be a Njoku team. Again, we have that stack of Hurts and Brown in this tournament. I don't see it as necessarily as a value that you definitely need to take in. But it's definitely one that you can build in if you want to. This leaves the door open also for a kind of a Mark Andrews here. We'll see. If Ramondre's still there, I've clicked him before. We've had Charbonnet queued up. But if Stevenson falls, I'll take Stevenson. Somebody knocked on the door. Well, I can't answer it right now. Can you see who it is? Hey, what's going on, buddy? Who is it? Just say no. All right, bud. So let's see. Ooh. All right, let's click. All right. Stevenson's there, so we'll click him. Here you go. You want to say hi? Hi. Can you wave to everybody? Hi. You're going to get into best ball soon, I bet. Maybe a couple more years, right? All right. So the idea here, guys, for this draft, we built up wide receivers early. We built up wide receivers early in this one to show you kind of a different approach. This was wide receivers early from that 5 hole. Totally different type of team structure. We've got to get a couple of those dead zone running backs. We could definitely have a better team here. We'll see what hits. Hey, come here. Did you fall down? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness gracious, you fell down. Try not to fall down too much, right? All right, so Sharps just went off the board. And as you can see, guys, you know, the kind of arrangement like we were saying about quarterbacks, watching the board is really smart in these eliminators. Seeing where these top-end quarterbacks are going to see how people are going to approach quarterback on that back end is one of the important things to notice. Because as you can see, I haven't yet taken a quarterback. Not a lot of double ups on our side. So we'll see which quarterback falls to us maybe in the 12th, 13th, 14th rounds. Potentially a Bryce Young might fall to us because these guys are all pushing quarterback a little bit earlier. Yeah, we're working on those gestures. So saying hi, he wants to say hi, but not quite getting there yet. But he's been, we've been practicing, trying to practice with the librarian. When we go up to the library, Tucker Craft, everybody, you know, family, one of our viewers has pointed out that, you know, Tucker Craft is an incredible value as it goes to what we were talking about earlier in the episode about value at tight ends. You're really pushing that 11th round value and not having to push a tight end early. Definitely makes your rosters flip a little bit differently. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily like this one so much because I would rather have a little bit of a deeper running back room at this point in time. Guys like Tootin really fit into builds like this. Obviously, he's off the board. Here you go, Jonnu. Somebody who's only paying attention to ADP. Jonnu at ADP, where the last draft that we did, we got him in the 160s. So we got him round 14, the last draft that we did with Jonnu here, much, much earlier. All right. So this is definitely one we're going to push probably blue a little bit because the running back room here is not as solid as for other rooms. So we're going to push blue here. Make sure anytime you do these drafts, watching your board is just so important. I know other content creators will let you know that as well. But seeing here, like coming down on the comeback, if these guys don't take quarterback, there is absolutely no reason for me to take quarterback at 149. And there still might not be a reason for me to take quarterback at 149 because everybody at this end already has two. So by waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, I could probably get, while it's not the most sexy, again, I could probably get a guy like Bryce Young at 164, pick up a little bit of positional value somewhere else. I don't have to push him unless somebody does. Quite frankly, I'm probably not. We're going to take Joe's boy Tillman here. We have 3 week 9 wide receivers, so I don't necessarily like that. But again, Jacoby, Rome, and Justin Jefferson should be enough to get us through week 9. We have no other running backs on a week 9 bye, and we have Jalen Hurts on a week 9 bye. So, you know, stacking up all of our great players like that on week 9, you know, not necessarily a blessing. So, you know, taking a look at the schedule, what's week 9 look like? So we can kind of build which quarterback do we like better here. There goes Gino. Okay. So they took 3 quarterbacks and 3 quarterbacks. Maybe some of our viewers paying attention, watching me. So coming down here, quarterbacks remaining, Cam Ward, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers. So week 9, where I ideally would very much like them to play, Steelers play the Colts. Not a bad situation to be in. We have Seattle playing Washington, so that could be a game to kind of capitalize on. And we have where and Carolina playing Green Bay. So, you know, Green Bay maybe that's a team you want to capitalize on as well. Indy playing the Steelers, so I probably don't want to build A-Rich into this team. It'd have been nice to get Cam Ward, most likely. Tennessee was playing the Chargers. There goes Bryce Young. So this click is probably going to be Sam Darnold. Taking 4 quarterbacks. T-Falls is killing me here. Taking 4 quarterbacks doesn't make any sense in the Eliminator, guys. It's 18 rounds, and let's take a look at this guy. He took 5 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 4 quarterbacks in the Eliminator here. That doesn't track. Doesn't make any sense. Likely going a little bit later. That'd have been nice if he would have fell. Dobbs is still on the board, but I am going to click Sam Darnold here. I don't see this guy taking a quarterback. Sam Darnold won't make it back. The matchup is good enough week 9 where I'm going to need him the most. Again, I want Jalen Hurts to overperform. But where I need him the most, week 9 is against the Commanders. That could be a nice game for them. We knew that he had to go quarterback here. He might elect to go quarterback here or wait because everybody's already filled out their quarterback room. So we have Njoku here. The problem with taking Njoku, guys, is that you can't really take Mason Taylor unless you really pump it up a little bit more. This might be a Braylon Allen click. I also like Pat Bryant here. So let's see. Gesicki is really nice here in the 15th round as well. Braylon Allen went. So this is going to be a Pat Bryant click. So this is going to take us to 7 wide receivers. Yeah. So we're 2, 5, 7, 1. Everything that I said about last time, I am going to queue up Theo Johnson, and I'm probably going to queue up Chig. I think Chig has enough upside. I also like Gunnar Helm if you want to be different, which we were being different in our Best Ball Manias, DraftKings, Mega Millions. If you want to be different, Gunnar Helm is interesting. Oronde Gadsden is interesting enough. He has that tight end eligibility. Could maybe not play that tight end rule so much. Maybe plays a little bit in the slot, which then, if you believe in Ladd, you might not want to take Gadsden. I also like Fannon's upside. So if you're a little bit lower on Njoku, Fannin probably a good buy at his price. Gunnar Helms, again, is a guy I like a lot. I think Austin Hooper, I said this last week, I think Austin Hooper is a sneaky buy, especially if you're a Drake May owner. A lot of the Drake May guys will be stacking up Drake May with Hunter Henry, and it's just another way to get different. Alec Pierce here going 181, ADP somewhere around 190. So he's got QJ, McMillan, Pierce, Pearsall, and Jennings. You can make that work, but you could. That's rough. But again, that's week 14. So he's going to have Juwan Jennings and Pearsall all year. He took a back end week 12 here, week 9, week 11. So guys, playing to win it early. Week 6, I believe. Week 11, week 7, week 11, week 5. And then your back end wide receivers. If they pop, you have those 5 running backs almost consistently. So, while it's not definitely a team that you want to build so often, it's a team that if you go for a build like that, taking late bye week wide receivers is smart. I would not have taken 4 quarterbacks, though. I would have taken more wide receivers. So like Baker, Jared Goff, JJ McCarthy, and then taking Bryce Young, completely unnecessary in a tournament like this. But, if you advance, you're going to be the only guy there probably with 4 quarterbacks. All right, we're going to take Samson here. Samson's a click that you can easily make, down here in the 16th, 17th round. He could get receiving upside. That running back room is kind of in flux. Last draft, I took Judkins. This draft, we have Samson. A little bit of upside, decent enough line in terms of, capabilities to run. I'm very thankful Darren Waller's still on the board. I don't think that he's worth drafting at all. This builds 2, 6, 7, 1. These last two picks are going to be tight end. We have Njoku. Mason Taylor's off the board. Chig's off the board. So we're going to queue up Theo Johnson. And maybe we'll take a chance here on Gunnar Helm. We'll see how the room falls. Dalton Schultz is an interesting ad. Seeing guys in the eliminator like Schultz, while he's not my favorite guy to select, his points per game is interesting. So we're going to click Theo Johnson here. Let's take a look at tight end, the leaders in tight end last year. Dalton Schultz was at 5.5 points per game. He did have a spiked week at 14.6. So not the best build. Like I said, Austin Hooper last year had 2 games past 12 points. So that's interesting to me when you get this late and this down in the weeds. When we look at the tight ends that had that average tight end value of like 10 points per game, it was Jonnu, Njoku, Taysom Hill, McBride, Bowers, and Kittle. Taysom Hill's old though, so maybe you want to take a chance on Hill this late. Maybe I will. If he was still on the board, I think he's there. Probably going to retire. But if that quarterback room is rough, there's reason to believe that maybe you get a little bit more value with Taysom Hill. So in this one, like our friend family has said, maybe you take a chance. Like I said, I love Gunnar Helm, love the potential there. What people don't know is Taysom Hill is 34 years old. So can he continue to do it as he's done it in the past in the limited capacity that he has? In these back-end tight end builds, it's worth saying it's worth a chance. So T-Falls coming out and salvaging a wide receiver room. Jennings, Pearsall, Johnston, McMillan, Pierce, Michael Wilson, Coker. This is an interesting move because not many people are going to build teams this way. If he makes it, he's going to overwhelm them with the potentiality of running backs as opposed to, the running mate on the opposite side. Genty and then Tootin and Roshan and Justice Hill. 2 week 8 buys as your 2 starters there, with Tootin having the start for you in a way and not building out any back end. Roshan, I mean, most people are low on Roshan right now for good reason. All right. So yeah, we'll click Hill here. Again, not a click that I don't click Taysom Hill often. Bye week late enough. If he doesn't retire, we're golden. All right, so let's take a look now, guys, at our completed exposure here. So that was our 3rd eliminator of the day. It's not going to pop up in the eliminator exposure categories at all. But taking a look and seeing, so we're just jumping into the eliminator this year. We were pushing the Superflex puppies hard. That tournament closed. So taking a look at who we have, we had pick 5, pick 3, pick 2. Pick 2. So this is the exact opposite of where we were sitting at for the puppies. And, this one will kind of finish up really quickly. So there we go. We got our 5. Pick 5, pick 5, pick 3, pick 2, and pick 2. Quarterback combination, Josh Allen, Bo Nix, Drake May, Jordan Love, Lamar and Stafford, Lamar and Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts and Sam Darnold. You can see that I'm just taking 2 quarterbacks. It's very different than what Joe's doing, taking 3 quarterbacks, 4 quarterbacks, pairing this room up. We've got Bijan, Jacobs, Connor, Jones, Tootin. So again, similar to what that other guy did, taking some running backs early, building in the value, and then taking your shots at wide receiver and tight end. Again, like I said, I love clicking Theo Johnson. Practice what you preach. Theo Johnson again. Isaiah Likely here. Mason Taylor and Likely. I think Likely and Theo Johnson are like two of my favorite guys that I click at tight end. This running back room very easily could get outclassed by other running backs, but 3 guys with top end talent. And then we built in 2 wide receivers that have top end upside with a little bit of talent later on. In this one, pick 3, same, Roma Dunze was our first click at wide receiver at pick 70, and then building a bunch of back end players. Is this team as elite as others? No, because we had George Kittle and Lamar as part of our build. We also have Jahmyr Gibbs and Kyron Williams, so it's a little bit of a different build. Here, we also had Lamar, but we pushed the running backs a little bit earlier, guys. We also have a grouping of wide receivers, which is really nice. Jacoby as a 3, as opposed to Jacoby as a 2. Very, very clickable guy. You can see here, we've done 5 drafts, and I have Jacoby in all 5. So we've done 5. I have Jacoby in all 5. Lamar in 2, Jordan Love in 2. So, knowing that those 2 guys, I think, have a very good chance to pop off. Tyron Tracy in 4, building out the other ones, kind of spreading the board around at running back. Wide receivers, similarly, Pierce, Tillman, Noel. Tillman and Noel are very easy to click later on because of the upside potential that they have on their team. Tillman potentially getting that number 2 role, even though that's probably still going to be Njoku. Rome is the number 2 as well. Really interesting potential there. And Jacoby, like I said, I will pump the brakes on Jacoby, but here I think his value is good enough that it's not worth continuing to not draft him in certain tournaments. Tight ends, practice what you preach. Love Likely and Theo Johnson at their values. Getting a little bit of everybody else that's available, there, I think is really smart as well. All right, guys. So I am going to head off. We are going to be with you again at 3:45 on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we are going a DraftKings money, millionaire maker. So on Wednesday, we're going to be doing a DraftKings millionaire maker. Join us on Wednesday, 3:45, probably till about 6. And we'll pick up where we left off. So we appreciate all the love. Click like, follow, subscribe, comment in the chat. If you have any ideas on what you'd like to do or see the next episode, let us know. All right. We appreciate everybody. Thanks a bunch. See you later.